some pure grade. Good old medicine here, back from Fiji too. Bit of kava, bit of botanicals in there for you as well. I've got my eye on you, mate. I'm sure we're still mates, but geez, if you can't go telling me lies, well, I can't help me out. Would you agree, Adji? Would you agree that you just can't simply just put my obituary online to everyone to see? I even got emails from blokes saying, "I hope you're feeling better." It's just not right.
Well, I would like to say that I'm innocent, but I was probably a little bit involved in the great heist of Smatho last weekend. But the opportunity was there, and we knew that you couldn't really fight for a reply, so we had to have a little bit of a dig at you. But in all seriousness, it's very good that you're back, and very good that you're back in the hot seat, and we can all hear you. I'm just checking audio again, Smatho. Oh no, we've got audio. Whoa! What a success! All right, we're off and running. So yeah, it's very good to have you back. But it's funny, there's been some huge news today, which no doubt everybody has heard in AFL. It's some of the biggest news really in town, and people are thinking that we're talking about Jaden Stevenson and his appalling decisions, but I don't know if you've seen the news, and I've got a bit of a screenshot up at the moment. Both the Vigilante News and the Korea News is reporting, is Hef really sick? You know, after the punishing attack of Luke Godzilla Smatho Matheson, there's reports of a roaming beast going through Korea looking for Hef. And then the Vigilante News is, what will the future hold for Hef? And this actual expose is written by Andrew Bolt. So it just shows how serious this is and how people are trying to track down Hef and really get a little bit of a please explain. So hopefully we can get a bit more information out of him next week. And, well, Christ, if he calls in sick, I can't believe I'm going to have to go for the third week in a row. This is killing me.
You're a big bully, aren't you?
Well, I play a role. What can I say? I play a role.
You just can't respond to that.
No.
Oh, man.
Well, I'm sure he will. He's going to pop up somewhere on social media. He does have internet access, so we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens.
Oh, man, if you made the Vigilante News down here in Hobart, it's big news. So
Big news.
reliable and trusted by everyone down here in Hobart, the Vigilante. Look, we do have it. We do have a run sheet here tonight, Adji, and we'll try and stick to it because obviously we don't have the scientists with us tonight. So we'll just talk DFS and talk some crap tonight. What do you reckon?
Yeah, sounds good. And hopefully we don't have any other technical issues or problems, or we're getting messages here from the fans. Let's see. Oh no, we're getting abuse from Hef already. So clearly he's seeing the show and enjoying the newspaper articles. So yeah, look, let's hope the Vigilante News doesn't come knocking on his door sooner rather than later.
Yep. All right, let's get straight into thumbs up. Last week. Now I did catch a couple of slates. I did fly back here on Saturday. I managed to sit in Brisbane Airport and put the side in. So, but you have to tell me what happened on Thursday with Chris Eddy. He took out the big money ball contest.
Yep.
And then on Friday we had Dells 9-0 and Beefy 8-2, who actually tied with a extraordinary two significantly different lineups. How'd that go on the Friday and Thursday nights there?
Well, look, Thursday night. I actually can't really recall. That was the Richmond-Adelaide game, so it was just a points fest from memory. But Friday night was really interesting. So Dell's 90, who is Jess, who is the wife of See You Mate, who's sort of very accomplished DFS player himself, is very good at NBA and has really moved across to the AFL side of things recently. Jess basically decided that she was going to fire off one entry in the 100K event, and sure enough, spun it up and chopped first place for $5,000. So we do have some details about Jess and a little bit of an interview with her actually on the MoneyBall site, which should be up there sometime tonight. But really, this is just something that everyone at home should really celebrate and be excited about. That, you know, it's a perfect example that anybody can win with DFS. And ironically, her husband Nathan was giving her all sorts of advice about what she should do, who should she be picking, all these sorts of things. But instead, she went with her gut. She went with a few players that she liked. She was lucky enough to have some players with really low ownership. And see you later, $5,000 in the pocket. Perfect way to start the weekend, and just shows that anyone can have a win.
But you know what, Ajay? She's not getting my thumbs up, though.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yep. Because I arrived back on Saturday and I put in one particular contest
You're not
and I
giving it to
showed it to
yourself, are you?
yourself.
You're not giving it
I
to
showed it to
yourself.
you and you said, yeah, that's a pretty good team. That's pretty good. Since you decided to put more than one entry, but we might get onto that a little bit later. And by the time I got home off from Brisbane, got back and checked, it's like, oh, I'm knees deep here. But in the end, the one guy hit the top, hit the 1,000 point mark. It was Humpty 84. Bring the team up because
It's
I
up.
pretty much had all his players apart from a couple. Sammy Day at 97.
I don't think
We're
anyone
all
had Sam Day.
yeah, we all jumped on the cheap, Will Brody's and the Hines and all the world, but none of them in this particular team. Lipinski, English, Dunkley, Billings all went Coco bananas. So, 1,025. I think he ended up winning by like 45, 48 points. So it was kind of a stroll in the park in the end. So if Humpty 84, if you're going back to me, OG.
I'm back. I'm back.
2 thumbs up for you. Well deserved. Wow. I was up. I think I was 170 in. I was proud of my effort. Like no research, no. I just went bang, bang, bang. As you said, you just chuck a team in, and it was pretty good. So, well done to you, Humpty.
And just an interesting one, just talking about that, and I'll get the team up again very quickly myself, just to talk about a couple of things. Everyone really thought the St Kilda Gold Coast game was the one. They thought everyone was going to go at that game. It was,
Yeah.
Obviously Gold Coast are known for leaking so many points, but really the Doggies Carlton game was just ferocious. It was points aplenty. Obviously Billings had a ripping game. It was just one of those slates that it was really, really good. So look, well done to Humpty, and I think you've covered Humpty a little bit in your article for Moneyball, and it's crazy. He's a relatively newish player, sort of starting to find his feet, and just really doing well at DFS. And it shows that if you put in a little bit of time, you read articles, you check resources, you use any of the other resources that are all around on the DFS space, anyone can have a win. So, look, well done, Humpty. We've certainly been seeing his name up and about the leaderboard over the last little while. I think, from memory, he's won a seat to the live final, I think. I can't
No,
remember.
I don't.
Or
No,
he's got
I don't
close.
think he has yet. He's got close. He's
Okay.
that's his aim. He wants to see. He wants to get along the lads here in Melbourne. So,
Yep.
I think. Look, sure, put a couple of sides in Moneyball doesn't hurt, but I think his focus now is to get that seat golden ticket in Melbourne. Now, speaking of golden tickets, we have to touch on about the winners from the weekend. We had actually 8 winners. With Draftstars actually congratulated earlier week. And these guys include Leon 1107. There's Scav, Line for Life. I love Lamp. JK123 Donkey. Trent L for a second ticket. BVB 21 and Spud 01. So big names there. Line, Lamp, JK, Donkey. They're all the big hitters. But what I did this week, I wanted to touch with the small dogs, as I called them, the ones that are actually going to be really excited to rub shoulders with the elite guys here in Australia and have a chance for that 50K first prize. What do you reckon?
And look, it's not only that about the small guys. It's fantastic that not only some of the bigger players are winning their seats now, so then I guess it clears the runway a little bit for some other players to win. But it's such a fantastic night. And, you and I had an absolute ball at the Big Bash one. And, everyone was there, all the big players, and even, all the regular sort of names. And it's just a really, really fantastic night. So it's so great that there's so many more people getting involved. And as it gets closer and closer, more people are going to win tickets. The excitement's going to build. Yeah, it's just really good. And obviously can't wait to be doing a bit of work with you on the night. And you'll be roaming Smatho around, annoying people, doing interviews. So it should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. And as I said, I think we're just reaching the halfway point now of tickets being allocated. So if you think about, all right, putting some couple of sides in now, it's just starting to get the train rolling. Like even on Sunday when I was back, there's a great new feature on the Draftstar site, which is the CSV upload, which for a nufty like me, I actually found it pretty good to download, put some teams in, and then submit, and then just double checking. And when you get laid out, and which was a couple, I was able to do the swap player feature. And this is all while I'm out sitting on the hill at Blunston Arena waiting for the game to start. So, whereas before you had to meticulously put in one time in the team after another, and then sometimes you couldn't find your side and you might team. So I think Draftstars are really now expanding their side, making it very user-friendly, especially for little nufties like me who like, sure, I might put 1, 2, or 3, but now I can go 5, 6, 7, 8. What do you reckon?
Yeah, and it's a great feature, as you mentioned. And look, both Moneyball and Draftstars were really quick to action this. Obviously, there is advantage for some bigger players that are entering some huge amounts of teams. It just to manually enter anywhere over sort of 50 or 60 teams is really hard work. But to actually be doing teams on the smaller stakes, so perhaps you want to put 20 teams in the $2 mini, or you want to enter the cheaper contests or whatever they might be, you can go and do 20 teams at once without having to manually do it. You can have a good idea of what your exposure is, and also, look, to be fair, to give a big shout out to the guys at Fantasy Insider who have got sort of one of the only crunches in the industry that now you can build a team on Fantasy Insider and download it, and it automatically comes with all the players' numbers. So if you are, for whatever reason, caught up at work, or you're a bit busy on a Saturday before, the slate starts, you now have the ability to go and do 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 100 teams relatively fast. And again, we're not saying that this is cheating or helping other people, beat the system or anything like that. It's really a tool for making things easier for anyone that's really entering any more than a couple of teams. And as you mentioned, there's some really good editing features now on both the sites. So Moneyball allows you to extract your teams and then go and do any changes if you need it. And also Draftstars now can let you extract it, and you can favorite certain teams and remove them and things like that. So not only is it the building of teams that make it a heap easier, but it's also the managing of what contests you want to play and enter them in, which is really, really good.
Yeah. No, as I said, I'm a big fan. I'm actually going to be learning as the weeks go on, and I'm sure I'll probably master it by the end of the year. But yeah, just to have those, from where we were round one in the AFL to where we are today, 14 weeks in, the community probably gives you more 2 thumbs up for listening to the players and for the suggestions, and just now it's up to us to okay, we've got the tools now. Let's see what we can do with these sites.
Absolutely. And I think, anything that can improve the process, so it either makes it simpler to enter more teams or play more teams, or, anything that's going to improve your DFS experience and make it something that's not going to cut into too much of your time, it's a great thing for everybody. So, well done. 2 thumbs up, as you said, for both Draftstars and Moneyball for finally pulling the trigger on it. And I hope it's the first of many new innovations that are going to happen in the DFS space.
Sure. In other news as well, with our newest member here, the DFR team, Kansas, has been producing some really quality content in the last week or so. Obviously, his couple articles have come out pretty short and sweet this week. Talking about bias and this week. So, as a relatively new person in the psychon space, I'm finding these articles pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think it's really good. And obviously, a lot of us can get, and I'm guilty of this, as everyone is, you can get really caught up on certain things that you think with sport, whether it might be a bias towards a player or a certain team or a ground or any kind of situation. And what Kansas is doing is really getting us to think about those things, wind back and do something a little bit different, which might actually affect your outcomes. So, I think there's 3 articles now on site. We're doing a whole series of 10 or 12. I can't remember the exact number, but go and check them out. They're a really good read, and it just helps you mature and develop the mental side of things a little bit better, which will hopefully help you with your DFS results.
Yep. Now, they're good. Sometimes you might have to read them 2 or 3 times just to make sure what the message is. But once you've got that down pat, it's really good.
Yep.
It's really good.
Yeah, so
all right, let's
check
talk
them out of the DFR site.
Yep. As I said, it's free to access, and it's great material. All right, you want to talk some footy?
Sure, why not?
All right, let's look about Thursday night then. Well, let me set it up for you. We've got West Coast Eagles playing Essendon. Currently, West Coast have got an 18.5 line. 160.5 is the current total. both sides have come out with Moneyball with a $40,000 contest for a $15 entry, and then Draftstars have come with a big $100,000 contest for a $20 buy-in. Been pretty big news in the AFL today, is that so much so that these teams are kind of just sitting in the background here.
Yep.
But four changes at the Eagles, including Cole, Waterman, Rothman, and Joshy Smith, all kind of little bargain place guys. They're out of the team.
Yep.
Bunga Hearn's back, Elliot Yo's back, Chris Marston's back, and new player in Jared Cameron, who's a little buzzy kind of pocket forward there for us.
Yep.
Jake String is out for the Bombers, and Mitch Brown will come in to replace him in the forward line. Looking at the resources, they've been updated on the DFR website, which is always free to look at. These guys are really evenly matched. There's no real rucks or mids or backs who are bigger than the other. So all the carries seem to be evenly matched, even the last 5 games. So we pretty much got a head-to-head contest here.
Yep.
Let's start with the rucks, as we always do. Look, there's no Vardy. What happened to Vardy? Did he get suspended?
Don't know, to be honest. But just quickly before we go on to the players, I think it's a really interesting thing about these teams being even. This is very much a DFS situation where we look at game scripts. Is it going to be Essendon that are just going to be downhill skiers and absolutely run over the top of West Coast, and then all their players will in effect get some points? Or are we finally going to see the Eagles be the team they have been for the last couple of years at home and just squash Essendon? It's really, really strange scenario. I think the ins were interesting that you talked about. I've got a small suspicion Yo will be a laid out.
Ooh.
I don't think he will play. I think it just, there's no need to rush him back. The last thing you'd want is having a couple of sort of half underdone guys that are in the back line. If Yo was 100%, I would almost sort of say 100% Dylan Clark was going to go to him to tag him. But I've just got a funny feeling Yo's going to be out. I don't think they'd want to give him a tough game against Clark to get the ball rolling again. That's just a gut feeling. But with the rucks, so we'll go back to that. It's an interesting one, and while I just get some notes up as well, I cannot tell you how unexcited I am about the ruck department tomorrow night. If there was a $5,000 option that wasn't playing, I think I would seriously consider actually having a placeholder there, if that was an option. But after going through everything, I can't pick Bell Chambers. I can't pick Hickey. I think most times I'm going to go McKernan here. For no other reason that Essendon are lacking a little bit of forward power now with Stringer out. McKernan does have these interesting games where he can bob up and kick 3 or 4. Bell Chambers is an absolute plotter. I just can't really see him doing well. Hickey has 2 good games, in his life. It's really quite unappealing. So I don't really have much more out there for the listeners, but I think McKernan is going to be in 80% of my teams tomorrow, and we'll sprinkle a little bit of Hickey and Bell Chambers just in case, I don't know, McKernan has his knee. You know what I mean? Like, it's not exciting stuff, that's for sure.
No, well, let's move on to defence then. Obviously, Bunga Hearn's back because obviously last week I looked at the player scores for the Eagles, and there wasn't really many high scoring backs back for the Eagles. So with Hearn back, there's a bit of certainty. If you're playing some cash games, you probably want to plug him in.
Yep.
For the Bombers, though, I'm pretty interested in the Bombers because obviously Hurley, who is back status, and unfortunately Hooker, who is forward status, turned up last week. So obviously Essendon backs are scoring quite high. Even Adam Sard is starting to build some nice scores as well after being dragged back in the pockets. Now he's got that free run through halfback. So I'm probably looking at Essendon guys instead of West Coast. What do you reckon about that?
I think one thing that's interesting to think about, and ironically we were just talking about bias before, we don't want to get too much bias on what we saw last week's with results. So putting Hurley aside for a second, he's actually been playing really well the last couple of weeks. You've got to remember, as we've talked about a million times on this show, Hawthorn give up a ton of points to backline. Clarko just doesn't care. He lets them all have a fill-up, and that was literally what happened again last week. So I'm not saying that Hurley isn't going to have a good game, and Hooker, again, isn't going to have a good game, but don't fall in love with their recent numbers, because I think there's slight distortion or bias of what's going on. I also think, too, that everyone forgets that, again, if West Coast decide to show up tomorrow, they have one of the most potent forward lines ever. Now, it's very easy to sit there and, who was Hurley on last week? Gunston or someone. It's a very different story when you've got a Jack Darling or a Kennedy at home and they're running you around in the back line. So, again, this is another really unexciting position. I think Hearn, you're right. You definitely want to be looking at him for cash games. But perhaps people like Duggan, who else? I tried to write some notes about this, and I was just like, I may not play tomorrow night. You know what I mean? This is the most unexciting slate I've ever seen.
Oh dear! Look, Will Schofield at 3.5, and Nelson at 3.8. You never know. They might get you 40 points.
Yeah.
Look, there's a lot of.
Yeah, I'd prefer to be spending in the midfield, I think.
Yeah, I think you want to just get. Yeah, you have to spread the load out here tonight. You can't. Bungerhorn's 9K. That's a lot of your salary too.
Yeah, so that means he's really going to need 120, 125 on Moneyball to break even. And Draftstars number, he is... let me just get it in front of me. He is... Sorry, the magical technology, nice and running slow.
Get your Netscape up, come on.
Yeah, well, literally. I got
your Navigator.
So Hearn's 130 or 13,800. So, in either side, they're both priced relatively similar for value. You're going to need 120 off him. You know what I mean? To kind of break even, 115. Yeah, probably even more so on Moneyball. I don't know. Real gamble. Yo's, obviously an interesting one with there too. If he does play and doesn't get a tag, again, he's 14.8 on Draftstars. He is
10K, 10-1.
So again, it's another play that you're going to need to get 120 points for to kind of not absolutely shoot your load. I think, I'd be wanting to look at some other people. So I'm looking at Moneyball now. I think...
Don't look too hard. There's not much.
There's not a lot, no.
It's going to give you a stroke in a minute.
Look, Sard is probably a good price. Mitch Brown is an interesting one. So Mitch Brown, 6,700 on Moneyball, can score 90s and 100. So he's an interesting prospect that I would probably think about adding. But I mean, Brad Shepherd, Hurley, I guess you're going to have to use. Hearn, Yo.
Maybe McGovern. He probably doesn't really have an opponent tomorrow with no Stringer and no Danaher. Look, I'm sure he might get on Mitch Brown, but Mitch Brown will go up the wing and he'll just stay home taking innocent marks. Maybe, I don't know.
The only problem is Essendon's game style is very if Essendon are dominating, they're going to be running the ball. Whereas if they're struggling, they're going to be bombing the ball, and that's really good for McGovern. So again, that's something you want to think about in your game scripts. That perhaps that's an angle of what you could do. But Smatho, I'm telling you, I'm not loving this slate. I'm not loving this slate. Let's move to a more fun area.
Yeah, the mids.
Let's go to the mids. Fine.
All right. Okay. So I've got here tag alert. Hutchins to Zachy Merritt. All right, because with Marston coming back in the team, Hutchins was doing Marston's role, right? Which was, being out the wing and, being a facilitator. Now that frees up Hutchins to go to the best player on the particular team, and that is Zach Merritt. Okay, I can't see him going to Zacharakis or Heppel. I think he's going to go to Zach. All right. So I think you'll tend to agree that we will have to be very cautious of loading up Merritt in our sides tomorrow. And then on Moneyball, we have Clark, who's going to be a free square tomorrow because he's still at the butt minimum 3.5K. So that's one of your mid spots.
Yep,
just playing.
Absolutely playing. That's right.
Yeah. So that means we have some more cash for those premium guys. But obviously, if we're not going to play Merritt, who else should we be looking for in the mids?
Again, looking at game scripts again, if we think Essendon's going to have a good game, you've really got to look at Heppel and Shield. They're very likely to go off. I think it would be crazy for them not to tag Merritt. Merritt has been, it's kind of like the Sloan mold over the last couple of years. People know if you tag Merritt, you shut him out of the game, and okay, granted he's not as dangerous as a lot of the other mids, but it seems an absolute no-brainer. But I put the question back on you the other way. Who's Clark going to tag?
Well, you got Shuey and Gaff. Gaff is your outside. Shuey is your inside. Redden's been not going all right, but yeah, is there? I can't really think of a suitable matchup. Really, you can't go to anyone else in the mids there.
Well,
You can't go.
I think if Yo plays, Clark goes to Yo.
All right.
Because I think Yo can be really, really dangerous and damaging. Gaff, as we know, is a fantastic fantasy player for Dream Team and DFS. You wouldn't want him in your Supercoach team because he just butchers the ball. But,
yes,
I can't see any reason really to shut down Gaff. If you shut down Gaff, it just really opens up Shuey, Sheed, Redden, all those guys to go nuts. Yeah, it feels like Yo to me if he plays. If Yo doesn't play, I don't know. I'm guessing probably Shuey is who I probably lead to. But again, if West Coast decide to show up tomorrow, there's a lot of really dangerous mids there that can go crazy.
Now, one particular player starting to get a bit of love in the season long stuff is actually Darcy Parish. Now he's 7.5 tomorrow. Look at his form; he's got the arrow up of 98 in his previous form.
Yep.
Been starting to get some talking up in the fantasy world. Is he a viable player in DFS?
I don't think he's consistent enough yet. I think that he's promised to show a lot over the last couple of years, and it feels like he is getting better. If I just get his details up now. So Parrish the last couple of weeks has had 88, had the bye, had 105, 101, and then 73. So again, you can fall in a little bit of love of those two big scores, but I mean, on Moneyball you're paying 7.5 for him. I don't have Draftstars up. Oh, Draftstars up.
Draftstars 11,690.
See, he feels expensive on Draftstars, but Moneyball he's probably at a price that you can play him. If he goes and scores 100 points, well and truly 7.5K is money well spent. The interesting thing, though, is as a forward, if you're thinking about an Essendon game script, he's not bad on Draftstars because there's probably lacking a few people there that can actually put up some big numbers, whereas he can, I guess, score 100, 120. He's not an auto play for me, but he will definitely be in some teams for sure.
Yeah. For some teams, if you plugged in Clark and then you go on Parrish, you're thinking, oh, geez, my mid's a little bit weak.
Yeah.
So that might turn a few people off. Just go, no, I'm not going to go Parrish. I'm going to go above that to really make my team look pretty good on paper. Yeah. But
I think
if you're struggling,
there's so many guys that can go off in this team in these mids. So we've already touched on the fact that the back line and the rucks. Obviously we've prefaced Hearn and Yo and things like that and Hurley, but there's not really any guys apart from Hearn and Yo that can go nuts in those two roles. Whereas in the midfield, there's 3 guys or 4 guys for West Coast that can go bananas. There's 3 or 4 guys for Essendon that can go bananas. Like Shield is a ridiculous price on Draftstars. Like when I was looking through it today, where is he? He's 1,300. 13 grand. So, he has big scores in him. Really big scores. Like can score 130. Over at Draftstars at Moneyball, he's 9,100. So, those guys are definitely in for 100-point games, and especially if it's a little bit of a bloodbath. Zaharakis is another interesting one. Now, he constantly breaks my heart, but he's one of those guys that if Essendon has a really big game, he can have 30, 35 touches really quickly too, and really accumulate them really fast. So, yeah, look, there's it's going to be an interesting team that wins the 100K tomorrow night at Draftstars, that's for sure. Because I think there's going to
Yeah.
be some really interesting players that might pop up and do something.
Okay. All right. Well, let's go move on to the forwards. Now, again, there are some kind of chalky plays tomorrow with your Twin Towers down at West Coast and Kennedy and Darling.
Yep.
Hooker is obviously forward availability on Moneyball. I can't really find any guys who are sticking their hand up. Look, Langford is forward, forward, and he's actually the highest guy there at 7K, along with Fantasia. He's also 7K as well. So there's a lot of 7-6 kind of guys here, and then you start looking at your Laverdes at 5, and your Begley's is your cheapest guy at 3.9. Is there anyone outstanding kind of plays here? If you're thinking, obviously you're thinking Scripps again. If you're thinking West Coast, you got to go the two talls. If you're thinking Essendon, you got to go, McDonald, Tip, and Woody possibly, even a bit of Guelphy for cash saving. So yeah, this is a common theme here. There's just no really outstanding kind of plays here.
Yeah, I like Begley, especially on Moneyball. I think at 3,500 he can score comfortably 50 points. Like, looking over his last few games, he's had 59, 65, 37, 54. So at 3,900, pretty much, if he scores 50 or 52, he's giving you 13x, which is a fantastic return for him.
Yep.
I don't know how well he would do if it's one-way traffic for West Coast. Petrocelli is an interesting one. So I don't think he's a particularly great play on Moneyball at 4,700, but I think potentially on Draft Stars he's a little bit better. Just marginally, actually. Again, any of those guys are probably going to be interesting ones that can probably bob up and kick a couple of goals. Like Liam Ryan, Petrocelli. So Rioli is out, I believe. Just checking the teams. So there's going to be that need for that little crumbing forward. If the Twin Towers do drop it down, it's going to be a nice night. There's no rain. There's nothing like that. So one of those guys definitely could go off. And as you mentioned, Tipper has a really good track record of when Essendon win, can score, 3, 4, 5 goals. So again, not overly sexy. You can probably look to do a Tom Hickey, Sean McKernan double if you wanted to do ruck and forward. Again, you definitely want to be having some Darling or Kennedy in some of your stacks, especially your West Coast stacks. If they go nuts, yeah, who knows? You know what I mean?
Yep.
I can't see them both going nuts because I think Hurley will lock down one of them, but there's every chance one of them does go well.
True. There's one final play I want to touch on before we move on to the next game, which is the debut of Jared Cameron.
Yep.
Now, on Draftstar, he's the butt minimum 5K as a forward, but on Moneyball, he is the butt minimum as a midfielder. All right. So if you had the choice between Cameron and Clark on Moneyball, you'd be clicking on Clark's name 10 times out of 10 because Cameron is actually a little forward pocket, little whippet who probably might get 9 to 10 possessions, possibly a goal, maybe 2 at best. So unfortunately, it's a wait and see on this kind of guy, especially on Moneyball. You're wasting a mid spot on a guy who probably gets you 40, 50 points at best, whereas on Draft Stars, 5K for a forward, he has to be considered.
Yeah, so I had a little bit of a look at Clark's stats for this year in the Waffle, and Cameron. Cameron. Does like a goal. Has kicked plenty of goals. Multiple goals like 2s, 4s, but kicks a goal most games. But really has a ceiling of probably 10 or 12 disposals. I can't imagine, and sort of following up on what you just said, then I can't imagine he's suddenly going to be a 20 disposal player unless something really crazy happens. The only difference is with, say, on Moneyball, Clark is going to be something stupid like 85,
90. He
85%
was.
owned. You
Oh,
know,
he'll be 90. He'll be 92, 93 easy.
the only reason he might be a little bit lower is that if people are spending down in these other areas, they might have money to be able to fire, for 3 or 4 premium mids. As we've discovered, there's not a lot of money to spend in other areas, so that could be the only difference of why he's not, used. But I imagine the bigger players that are entering a gazillion teams, Clark is going to be a huge part of a lot of those. But look, Cameron might be a nice little point of difference for you, a good little pivot play, just in case something happens with Clark and doesn't perform. He might be in for a couple of goals. And that might also be a little bit of a sneaky thing to have a look at. I haven't had a chance to look at the odds yet, but Clark, anytime goal scorer, I imagine you're going to
Yeah.
get something like $1.80, $1.70, $2, something like that. First gamer. I can probably have a look while you do some other things, Smatho, but I imagine it'll be
No.
somewhere around that price. So that could be something to have a
Get
look at.
get get the sick man. I'm sure he's watching the show to text in, buzz in. What is Garth Clark playing for anytime goal scorer, please?
Well,
You've got 2 minutes.
he's probably on his deathbed. So
No,
we've seen the press
no.
today. He's probably at home, feet up, definitely not having a drink because he would never do that while he's sick. But yeah, we'll see if the man on the deathbed can come back and help us with. But yeah, look out for that. I imagine it's going to be somewhere around that price. And as we all know, first gamers have a ridiculous history of kicking goals in their first game.
First
Normally,
kick. Yeah.
well, yeah, first kick. Oh, look, first goal. I imagine he's probably going to be somewhere around $15, $17, something like that. So that might be worth a look. But he's going to have to spend some time in the forward line just because he's not going to have the tank. So yeah, little sneaky bet there. Might be something to have a look out for.
Nice. All right. Let's move on to Friday night.
Put your phone down, Smatho. You can get onto it after the show, all right?
Okay. Fair enough. Caught me out. Sydney Swans are playing Hawthorn on Friday night. Sydney are actually favourites. Would you believe it or not? 3 or 4 weeks ago, they were not going to win another game. So they actually got a 10.5 line. Points total are pretty low, though. It's 148.5 last time I checked. Moneyball are going to be presenting a $50,000 contest, and Draftstars also presenting a $75,000 contest on Friday night. So 2 massive pools of money for one particular game. As we probably know and seen, Ben Stratton's been rubbed out for a couple of weeks for being an asshole.
Pinchy.
Pinchy. And as I said, Stringer. I'm not sure. What about Stringer? Stringer's not even playing this game. No real significant news. I think Buddy's going to play again. So yeah, we'll have to keep on the teams tomorrow. Mm-hmm. Resources on the DFR website show a glaring stat here, AJ. That is that, as you touched on earlier before, that the Hawks leak a lot of points down back. They're actually now the number one side for backs, but all the other stats are kind of matching the same. The mids are around the same, and obviously the Hawks are very stingy up forward though. So they managed to keep the forwards underlined, but they don't give a shit about the backs on the other side of the team. Let's talk about this particular matchup where obviously the Hawks' big 2 towers are going to be in play. Hopefully they'll both be selected in Big Boy and Seglar. And then you've got Callum on the other side, which you can't really be trusted lately. If we want to talk about bias, I've got Callum bias on my brain. So I'm thinking either Segler as a bit of a cheap play or put Big Boy in there. And if I have got some cheap money over it, I might try play double ruck stack. What are your thoughts on the particular ruck situation this week?
It's not a bad thought. Segler has been a little bit of a surprise. He has not only been taking marks and kicking goals, which obviously always help, but the fact that he's also been getting some hit outs and winning some hit outs is a nice little surprise. I'm just trying to pull up the game now on Moneyball to have a look. Ruck-wise, I would... Ben McAvoy at 8,400 does feel a little bit pricey. Sinclair, you're spot on. You can't really trust him. He does have the ability to beat up on lesser ruckmen. But I mean, you have a look at his game log. He hasn't scored over 100 since he beat up on Carlton in round 3, and I think from memory Cruiser wasn't playing, so he beat up on Lobe or Phillips, one of the two, Lobe
Yeah, one
maybe.
of those two. Yeah.
Yeah. So the last couple of weeks he's sort of been 80, 60, mid 80, mid 80, 90, 90, which for 7,500 is barely sort of breaking even for you. Whereas someone like Segler, who you're paying 6,800 for, 96 last week, a little bit of a blip the week before against Stefan Martin, but 86, 101, 76. You know, he is going to get you 10, 12, perhaps 13, 14x, a whole lot more. Um, McAvoy has been scoring well. Um, he has had, 600 plus scores in the year. I think that's right, 6, yeah. Um, but again, you're paying, an extra $2,000 for him. So I think either McAvoy or Segler are probably an interesting play, and or both of them. Um, I just don't know if Hawthorn are any good. And that's the real question. Like, Essendon, I admit I got burnt with Hawthorn last week. I thought they were going to brain Essendon, and it looked like they were terrible. You know, who knows what's going to happen now with Pinchy not in the team. As much as he was doing some sort of dodgy antics, he does add a fair bit of structure down there for their backline. So it's going to be interesting to see what that actually does. Um, Sydney have sort of just suddenly become good again. They were so rubbish for weeks and weeks, and then, absolutely pulled the pants down on West Coast the week before. So it's going to be really interesting to see what they actually do. Um, it's an interesting one, Smatho. I don't really have the answers, but there is one thing I'm sure of, and that is Jake Lloyd.
Jake Lloyd, toot toot. I don't care if he was
Unbelievable.
12K this week. If he was 12K this week, I had no issues of paying up for him this week. And I'm going to tell you why. Because, again, my little research doesn't take much to get the research. You go to the player scores and you go through the Hawthorn scores and I see Basher Hooley, 117. Asprey, right? He turned up with
Mm.
100. Darcy Byrne-Jones, 126. Broadbent, all right? 100 points. Even Lukey Hodge from Hawthorn, who's just been a little plotter now, he got 84. And obviously last week with Hurley 111 and Hooker at 100, right? These are all these run and gun backmen playing the Hawks. And we've got the best in the league playing this Friday night, and he's just 10K on Moneyball. Sign me up.
Absolutely all in, just play him. Don't even think about it. It's probably not as obvious decision to play him on Draftstars at 16,000. I think he's probably a little bit
16.
expensive there.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
10k, Lloyd dead set could have 150 tomorrow or
Mm-hmm.
Friday, should we say? He is a pig. He absolutely gets the ball. He does kickouts. He is everywhere. Yeah, I think you don't even think about it. You literally, he's one of the first people you put in your team, and then just build around it. I think he'll be
Yep.
pretty heavily owned, which is crazy for a $10,000 player. But as with the stats and the data that you just talked about, Hawthorn just give it up to the back line. So yeah, big game for Jake Lloyd. Big game
Yep.
coming.
I suppose your second decision will come now is how many defenders can you shove in your team now from Sydney? You're going to use your second spot in Sydney, and you'll probably want to find a flex as well. So you guys like Mills, Rampy, McVeigh, Aaliyah, even Clark at 5'5". They're all great plays. And then obviously starting to get to the Hawthorn players when they're a bit lower. So if you're desperately running out of cash, you might have to screw it up and start again because you really want Sydney defenders in your team tomorrow.
Yeah, and even someone like Sicily, who look again probably a little bit badly priced on Draft Stars at 13,000, but on Moneyball he's not. He's 8-6.
Six, 6'8".
Yeah,
Oh, so Sicily, sorry. Eight
yeah, eight
six. Yep,
six.
not
Yeah,
Rampy.
so he's someone that could definitely get 110 or 100, which is basically break even value for you. If he scores 100 for you at 8,600, you're pretty much happy with that. You're getting 12x. Um, if you can build some teams around Sicily and Lloyd, they could be some serious points for you that you can just tuck away, not worry about it, and just hope that you can build some other good spots in your lineup. Um, Alia is really interesting one. So he is 5'8" on Moneyball. He scored 92 the week before or the round before the bye. He is becoming an amazing intercept marker. And even at Draftstars 9800, if he scores 80 for you, that's a great result for a price like that.
Hmm.
Um, we know Hawthorn's forward line are not overly tall. They're fairly mobile. There's every chance they could just be banging the ball in. It could be a really good night or a good spot for Aurelia. I will definitely be focusing around some Sydney backline. They're going to be a big part of my teams on Friday night.
Yep. All right, let's move on to the mids then, and have a look at potential plays there as well from who might be around halfback, including Zach Jones at 7-1 is another guy who'll probably, he's got crap form. He's got, the form's pretty crap, but if he's going to go back to halfback and play around there, that's a pretty good play. Obviously, Henderson is now going to be the top dog at 9-6. He's having a fantastic season. I've got him in my Supercoach team. I think I tipped him a few weeks ago to say, hey, get him in. Parker at 9-4, he's really taken over the midfield now. Kennedy at 9-3 seems a bit exy now. Shields is the yo-yo. You either get shit or a real massive ceiling game at 8-9. And then you got Jaeger 8-7, Warple 8-1. So we'll touch on the premiums first, and I'll see if we can find some value because obviously we're not really talking much value plays so far, Angie. What do you reckon?
Well, Zach Jones, I'm not sure if he's going to play. If he does play, I definitely would be putting him in.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember whether they've released that he's going to play this week, but he's been out since middle of May.
Yeah.
I think middle of May maybe. So yeah, if he plays at 7,100, he could be feasting with Jake Lloyd for sure. And I like that definitely on Moneyball that he's a mid position. So yeah, he's someone you want to be putting in. Parker and Kennedy, they're kind of like, you know what you're going to get from them. They're not going to really go berserk, but they're probably pretty good for a standard 100, 110, something like that. Win or loss. Henderson, as you touched on, has just become an absolute fantasy jet. He's someone that's not a particularly sexy player. He's certainly not a marquee player. He gets a little bit lost behind the Jaegers and the Scullys and all that kind of stuff. But Henderson is a great pick. Kicks a goal, gets plenty of his own ball, is everywhere. He's definitely someone you want to be working around.
I'm just
Scully,
looking at his game. Like he takes a lot of marks.
yeah,
11 marks versus Essendon, 11 marks versus Port, 10 marks versus GWS, 10 marks versus Geelong. There's not many tackles, like 3 or 4 tackles, but he just takes a lot of marks. So, look, at Sydney, AJ, it's a smaller ground. It's no ability to, chip around the wings and the half back. You either go down the wing or you get tackled.
yep.
So, might be a bit of a query mark on Henderson because he's a great price on Draftstars. He's the same price as Shield and Kennedy. And 9 times out of 10, he'd be clicking Henderson instead of Shields or Kennedy. So,
Oh,
just keep an eye on that.
well, definitely Shields. Kennedy, I guess, depending again on game scripts and what sort of team you're trying to build around. But yeah, I'm probably picking Henderson 7 times out of 10 before I am Kennedy now. An interesting one is Scully. So Scully, I had on my radar last week that he was really cheap on Draft Stars. I think it was. He was perhaps, I want to say 9,000, perhaps.
Yeah,
And
I think he was under 10K. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, it was quite
and
cheap.
scored 106. Knowing full well that there was every chance that Clark was going to tag Jaeger. And Scully really looked decent. And looking over a few of his past results, he's had 106, 72, 60, and 81. So he's definitely starting to get into a little bit of form. It's interesting what you were saying about the ground. He's one of those guys that gut runs. He runs probably more kilometers on the field than anyone else. I don't know whether that's going to hurt him or hinder him, but that could be an interesting one for people to have a look at. So definitely keep Scully in mind at 6,800 on Moneyball. I think he is an interesting person to think of. And on Draftstars, he's probably not so great on Draftstars anymore, but MoneyBall, I like him at 6,800. That's a good
Okay.
price.
All right, let's briefly go to the forwards. Again, a lot of DP, like dual position on draft stars. You got your Papleys and Warples and Heenies. They're all mid stars who can be playing the forward. So these are quite easy to get some there in draft stars. But over at Moneyball, though, you haven't really got much to go on here where we got Gunston at 7.5, Franklin 6.9, Jared Impey at 6.8. Your Dawson Reed Papleys around that high sixes as well, Bruce 6.7. So again, as I scroll down, I'm not finding much value. Blakey's 4K, but he's not really, tickling my fancy at the moment. So this is a tough little slate here, AJ. I can't really see some out and out value for any of these positions at all.
And I think also too, you've got to be conscious that if you are going to be spending up in the back line, you're not going to have plenty of money to throw around in your forward line. I love Tom Papley. He's playing probably the best he's played for a long time. He promised a lot in his younger days. He's been really good. Sam Reid is an interesting one. So a lot of times he really gets off the chain because Buddy is either running up in the midfield or has a couple of defenders or is just being Buddy and playing pretty average. So Reid is one of those guys that can really bob up and kick 2, 3, 4, 5 goals, plays in the ruck a little bit, plays a little bit of their link roll across half forward. I would probably be picking Reid before I'd be picking Buddy. Obviously, there's some opportunities for Buddy to go berserk and kick 10 goals, but I kind of feel like those days have gone a little bit. I guess, on the mental side of things, Buddy is probably going to set himself to play well against Hawthorn. If there's ever a team he's probably going to want to do well in, it's them.
Yeah.
He'd have a lot of mates that would still be there. Obviously, he knows Clarko. So that's probably something to keep in mind a little bit with some game scripts. But I think I really like Sam Reid and Papley. For Hawthorn, pretty unexciting, to be honest. Gunston, is going to break even for you a little bit. Tim O'Brien, maybe. Mitch Lewis, I liked him a lot more at $3,500. I'm not even sure if he's going to play tomorrow, but he's probably someone that you could think about. I'm not even sure if he's going to get a game, but at 4,200, Mitch Lewis might be someone that can, you can balance it off a little bit. But yeah, I would like to hope that I've got my team pretty well built before I'm looking at the forward line.
Well, I just did a quick build now with Lloyd and O'Leary in the backs, and then Reid and Papley as your forwards and Big Boy as your ruck. It's leaving with 22K for your mids and a flex, and that's an average of 5.6. So it's going to be hard. It's going to be tough work. Look, you're all in the same boat here. Unless we get some great team news and debuts and things like that. There's going to be some interesting lineups come Friday night.
And that's where probably playing someone like a Segler, getting that extra couple of $1,000 for you over Big Boy might be a better move than trying to play Sinclair. I just think that you're probably going to get more value out of them. But look, thankfully or hopefully I won't be on the show next week, so you guys won't be able to hang me for what I've said. But, Sinclair might go off tomorrow night just to prove us wrong and look silly. What do I say tomorrow night? Friday night.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I'm definitely not going to have a hell of a lot of him. That's for sure.
All right. Let's push on to Saturday. We'll quickly look at Saturday and Sunday because we've been on air for quite a while. This has been, we're here tomorrow where we're going, but 3 games on Friday.
When Hef's not here, the cream rises to the top, and we keep bringing in good material. So
we do.
Nothing we can do about that.
I don't know. We might have to go triple box next week. You never know. Melbourne, Freo, St Kilda, Brisbane, and Port Adelaide, Geelong. Moneyball, massive 100K contest for your $20 entry. And guess who's already got a free ticket from last night? And $50,000 Ken Telling tests on Draftstars. So that's what happens, AJ, when you chuck in a side in the cricket and you put 9 England players in, and one of those was Owen Morgan.
Wow.
Got me a ticket. So talking about free squares again, we get one on Saturday in Griffin Logue, who actually turned up at 3.5 last week. Most of us missed him, unfortunately, but for the guys who actually picked him up, well done to you guys there.
I don't even think his
Uh,
parents knew he was playing. Like no one knew. Like no one knew.
Everyone put pictures up with his massive hair, and he didn't have his massive hair. It was hard to follow. He had to
Yeah.
think he was short back and sides. Look, obviously the key team here on the slate is Geelong playing Port, very high scoring team. Melbourne want to get one back on Freo. I think they played earlier this year, and obviously the St Kilda Brisbane game is kind of going to be overlooked, but you're probably going to find your value from those particular sides. In terms of the resources, Freo now leaking to backs as well, so we might have a look at some possible cheap players from Melbourne who might get a bit of a boost. Look, just skim the surface here, AJ. Was there anything there on Saturday that you already had think that's going to be really good?
Well, I've heard some rumours that Lever may not play for Melbourne, so that might then potentially give a little bit more value to Salem, May, someone like that. Um, don't really love that game at all. I could kind of see it going either way. Will Walters do it again? He's been going absolute, bonkers with his scores recently. I wouldn't be shocked if Freo beat Melbourne. Um, you know, Melbourne, if you'd said at the start of the year, if you were trying to pick winners, in advance, you would have just penciled this as a win for Melbourne at home against Freo. But look, they've shown that they can win here in Melbourne, albeit, after the siren. But yeah, I think that there's definitely a chance that they could cause some problems. Gorn is an interesting one at 10.5 for Ruck there. Um, Look, we'll talk about Rucks quickly just before I get to the other games. The one that stood out for me, all right, Rowan Marshall at
Hmm.
7,900. He's having an amazing year. He's in for, pretty consistently 100 points week in, week out, has the potential to go bigger, and he is almost 3,000 cheaper than Gorn. So, that's effectively a cheap player at Moneyball. So, someone like that I would definitely be looking at. Reece Stanley, you just can't trust Chris Scott. DFS players have been burnt many, many times with people, late changes, things like that. So, obviously, tread
Yeah.
carefully with that being the third game for the afternoon.
Yeah, that's the late game. Plus he has to play Lysette and Ryder, who were supposed to beat up Darcy last week, but Darcy actually held his own and had a great second half there. And his salary doesn't get boosted. It's still the same salary as last week. He's 5.5
Yep.
here on Moneyball itself. So I wouldn't get too cute here. It's either go for Gordon or Marshall or go or pay your way down to Darcy. I think you probably want to leave the Port and Geelong ones alone and look at teams early on the slate on Saturday, I think.
Yeah, and
Hmm.
again, look, if you're playing single game slates, you can have a little bit of flexibility there, but I would definitely be looking to be building teams from the first two matches. But, buyer beware. Yeah, you just don't know what's going to happen. But apart from that, look,
Yep.
I like the Brisbane St Kilda game. I think that St Kilda is obviously missing Steele in the middle, so it gives opportunity to Dunstan, Armitage, Ross. Ross played a better game on the weekend, but you just don't know what St Kilda is going to come. I think Brisbane, there's some opportunities there. Robertson, has been having Robinson. Yeah, Robinson, the Carlton one, has been playing, probably had the best season he's had for a long time. Neil can go off. Zorko, if his hip's okay, can certainly go off. I'll be targeting that game a little bit. Yeah, that's probably where I'll be looking out for that weekend, or for that
Sure.
Saturday.
Yep. Let's quickly touch on Sunday. So Sunday is the Bulldogs versus Collingwood. 50K on Moneyball, 40K on Draftstars to end up the end of the buy rounds. No Stevenson for Collingwood. That's probably the only thing I've got for you tonight. He's out. Sean should take his mates off him and take his phone off him.
Seriously,
Uh,
Smatho, you're in a similar position to Stevenson. You get paid what, $1 million a year doing this. Would you jeopardize your contract for a $50 bet? or a $36 bet. That's what's getting reported.
Yeah, but I'm not 20 years old. These guys grew up, with odds and gambling and tipping in their minds. Whereas for us, I didn't get a mobile phone until I was at uni. We didn't have access to this. So this is all kind of new for us in terms of what are these guys doing punting where they shouldn't be punting on games. Yes, I can see in a nutshell he shouldn't be doing that because it was prop betting. If it was like Magpies to win, okay, sure, you don't have much of an influence on that. But if you're having influence on your own freaking game,
Oh,
yeah. But
no.
I can see there's going to be a lot of talk about should be more punishment. No, should have been a slap on the wrist. It's you want the integrity of the game to be upheld. And for us DFS players, where we should have been on Stevenson if he put bets on himself. That'd been great information. But
No,
I know it's a tough one.
look,
It's a tough one.
I think the penalty needed to be strong. I think they've done him a favour suspending 12 of the games. You know, I am sure. Obviously I'm past my prime as an AFL player. I don't know the briefings that they're getting these days, but I can assure you, Smatho, they are being told week after week, year after year, don't bet on footy. Like, don't take drugs, don't bet footy, don't send dick pics. I'm pretty sure they are the three things that would be heavily, heavily brought into them and messaged to them. So, for that
Yeah,
fact, if you are that idiotic to go and place bets with your mates or whatever, not only once, he did it like 6 times, and then was stupid
three.
enough to
Oh
talk to Jeremy Howe about it in the club room, saying Pendle's cost me my multi. Dickhead. That's all I can say. Dickhead. So anyway,
And
moving
that,
on.
but that's the thing. He's going to have a label now. He's done it. He's done a Stevenson. All right, so that's
Yeah,
the label he
he's a
has to wear for
dickhead.
fit. That's a ticket.
Yeah, yeah. And I like him. And look, I've actually got him in another competition we play in where we've got to pick goal kickers for the year, and he was one of my high priced auction picks because I thought he'd do all right, and now he's fucked me. All right, so yeah, no, not happy, not interested, and frankly, yeah, if he'd got a year, I wouldn't have been unhappy. But anyway, moving
All
back
right,
onto the game. Enough rant. I feel like I'm
move
Hefty
on the game.
ranting.
Now, I don't think Collingwood will let Bulldogs chip the ball around like they did the first quarter last week. Wasn't that wasn't that a
No,
turn up if you had
no.
Bulldog stacks last week? So, look, it's going to be on paper. If you assume that Collingwood would win, but the drama of Stevenson, and now they've lost a key forward. I don't know. I think Bulldogs are a great chance this week to upset them. Look, don't Dunkley's been going off. Uh, it's last man standing for the midfield of Collingwood. There's no Beams. There's no uh, Taylor. You know, this could be a good contrarian Bulldog stacks.
Yeah, look, it all depends on what Western Bulldogs team is going to show up. Um,
Mm.
Carlton should have won last week. They, you know, the doggies kind of held it together towards the end. Carlton kicked, I think, what, 6 out of the last 7 goals, something like that. The doggies fell over the line. Earlier in the year they beat Richmond when Richmond were semi-red hot, or not red hot, but were winning games, but then go and drop stupid games. It's a really hard form line to predict. My gut feeling is the Pies are going to really want to put games like this away. They lost to Freo before the bye. They've had to sit on that for the last 10 or 12 days. They've now obviously had the Stevenson dickhead issue. I've just got a funny feeling they come out and go whack. Um, a little sneaky bet for the day if people are interested. I love Collingwood to win the fourth quarter. They have got this ridiculous record where they play a really good first quarter, they get a lead, they kind of drop off a little bit in the second and the third quarter, and then the fourth quarter they go whack. So a little sneaky, just have a look out
Yeah,
there. That's something to have a look out for the weekend. But on the
you
DFS
make sure.
side of things, I think there's a few things that we could be looking at. Obviously, the mids for both teams have huge opportunity of going off. Um, will Grundy play? That's the big question. So if Grundy doesn't play, who's going to be taking the ruck work?
Well, that'd be Roughhead at 4-9.
And maybe a little bit of Cox.
Mm.
So that could be an interesting one. Brendan Sear or Braden Sear, I always pronounce his name wrong. At 5,700, I imagine he is going to be incredibly chalky on Moneyball. Um, you know, he scored, 95 in his first week. There's no Dame Beams. I think he could be a ripper. Lipinski,
Well, question. Yeah, well, it's a question to you. You've got a choice between Lipinski, who's the second cheapest mid on the slate,
yeah, I actually had to
and
I had to look at that twice. I couldn't believe he was 5,600.
so you've got Lipinski, and then you got Braden at 5-7. They're Grundy's a lock then. If you can afford that.
Yeah, you play Dunkley forward, you play Grundy ruck, you play Sear and Lipinski. You can then probably put another premium mid or two in there, or the Collingwood backline can be amazing too. They love kicking the ball
Mm.
around. People like Caleb Daniel, at 8,400 has the ability of scoring 120. There's there's some big options. There could be some big fantasy scores on Sunday. It's
Yep.
going to be a very
Yep.
very interesting one. Team players like, if I presume he plays like Crozier. Crozier has this opportunity of scoring big. Just trying to get his history up. It's escaping me right at the second. But he's the kind of guy that can score 100 and completely go under the radar. Um, yeah, it's an interesting slate. Obviously, some team changes will be interesting. Phillips is another one as well. Phillips,
Mm.
I've had a lot of fun with over the years. He's been good for punting. He's been good for DFS. Some of those games where Collingwood just tear teams apart, he can go absolutely nuts.
No, it's going to be a fun slate on Sunday. Like even guys like Lockie Hunter,
Mm.
he's high at 8-8 and he hasn't great form, but you've got to be contrarian for these particular slates to take him down. And you can't afford these guys, which is going to be good, I reckon. So,
And what about people like McRae and Bond and
mm,
Pendlebury and Trelaw?
draw, yeah.
There is so many guys that can have 120, 130 in this slate, and while you've got these other cheap mids, wow. And if Grundy doesn't play, gee, there's going to be a bit of cash to spend.
Yeah, I think and being the only game on Sunday, you got all afternoon to get the old CSV out and just plug away, and then bang it in and just go, let's see how we do. I think you have, look, single entry is great and awesome like that, but you might have to have a 2 or 3 or 4 on this particular one.
Yeah, and go and play the minis. If you want to go and experiment with this CSV, we touched on it before. If you want to go and do 10 entries, go and chuck $20 in the mini. You know what I mean? It's as similar as paying one and a bit entries in the $15, but go and have a play around with it. See what it's like actually doing multi-entry. It's a great experience, and really, there's going to be no wrong answers as such for this slate. There's going to be some crazy teams out there.
All right. Let's talk about other DFS sports that are available on the sites this week. And obviously, first...
You know what I want to talk about?
Yeah. How'd your golf go last week, by the way?
Golf went okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Did you make any
okay.
money?
Yes, I did.
Oh, good.
Thankfully, backing Adam Scott each way, 8 places on one of the corporates was a very good result, as I held my breath on the final round as he was sitting in tied for 7th and looking like he was going to fall over. But yeah, Tiger Woods kind of let me and Jay down a little bit, and Billy Horschel, I think, is still on about the 14th. Yeah.
He made the cut, though, didn't he? Did he make the cut?
He made the
I think
cut,
he did.
but pretty much everyone did
right.
a +2.
Yeah, they did, actually. That was...
So definitely happy to have you back during golf, which I guess is a nice little segue that you've done your preview already for this week.
Yeah, the Travelers Championship in Connecticut. Nice 10K contest on Draftstars, and obviously on DraftKings, the Kings of Golf there, $700,000 Drive the Green contest for a $5 entry. So, I've popped my plays up there for this week. My emphasis this week was guys who missed out on the cut at the US Open or didn't actually play at all. They're going to come in pretty fresh. Pebble Beach is on the West Coast. Connecticut's just up from New York. So he said it's a cross country trip. So I'm kind of fading the guys are going to be pretty burnt out. Look, I love Brooks, but I'm not sure about Brooks this week. But players such as Finau and who else I put through? Justin Thomas, if he can get his putter going back again, they're great players and they're really good players on Draftstars as well. So, check the article out. Obviously, it's a lock at 8:45 tomorrow. So, obviously, the footy will start a little bit earlier than that. So, you've got pretty much your first quarter to jam some teams in. So, make sure you're nice and organised throughout the day tomorrow.
And then $10,000 contest, I think, at Draftstars, is it?
Yeah, 10,000 on Draftstars. Yeah, so it's great after last week's major that we can go again for the Travellers, and also we got to start building up to the British Open, which is actually next month.
Yep.
And then the weekend will wrap up on Sunday evening.
Woo!
Thank goodness.
Origin!
Yeah. I haven't had actually a good look at it yet because obviously old Freddie Fittler said no stuffies. I need 7 changes in my side. I thought I was going to hit copy and paste and here's another article for you blokes, but no, I have to find out about another 7 blokes who are going to be playing in the New South Wales team. So, what do you reckon of I might get on the old Periscope later this week and do another couple of builds on the sites? What do you reckon?
Well, honestly, I'll be waiting for it.
Right.
You know how much I love Origin.
Set the notifications up, ready to go.
Yeah, I'll be definitely looking forward to that. Oh, that's it. Get the doctor's glasses.
But you get the doctors on again.
No, I think that's a good idea, and obviously you'll have your preview and quite an extensive preview for Origin. So yeah, I think doing something live on Saturday or Sunday would be a very good idea.
Yep. I'll get stuck into it after the golf and the footy over the weekend. Oh, geez, this has been a big show. I think we're approaching the 2nd hour mark here, so we better wrap things up. We might have to get on the old video editor and just cut out some crap and see how we.
It's all been gold.
It's been gold.
You can't cut away any of this stuff.
No, you can't. I've been away, so I had to put me double time in this week, Edgy.
No, fair enough. And look, hopefully, touch wood, I won't be here next week. I've loved helping you guys out and covering for you, but yeah, I'm more than happy to hand both sets of keys back to you and Hef next week. And if he calls in sick, well, Jesus Christ, there's going to be an attack down in Tassie tomorrow or Tassie next week. That's for sure.
All right, well, we might have put the old job advert on the Twitter.
Yeah,
we'll see what we get.
To
We might have to. Well, thank you for joining me tonight. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for doing that tonight. Any questions, you can always jump on our Twitter handles or jump on the Rankings DFS Twitter handle at any time. Articles will be coming thick and fast for the rest of this week, so make sure you check out the dailyfantasyrankings.com.au website. Once again, thanks for the participation this evening, and we'll catch you next week. Thanks, Adji.
See you, mate. Cheers.
See ya. Cheers.